Hello, everyone. It's Bob McCraney with Texas Pride Realty Group. We are brokered by Home Smart Stars, and today we're doing another podcast on the Flee Red States project. Today we have Jen from Expatsi. I hope I said that right.
That's
And
right.
Jen is helping people kind of in alignment. We're kind of like on the same path, but just staring at each other from different trains. We're helping LGBTQ people get relocated out of places where they feel that their rights will be, encumbered if the administration, plays any more tricks with our laws. Jen, tell us a little bit about what you all do as far as people wanting to pursue another place to live.
Well, we help Americans leave the US. So we help them move all over the world to countries of their choosing, whether it's as retirees or investors or digital nomads or students or skilled local workers. So we help folks move to every continent.
Okay, so where are you by the way, have you seen an uptick in your web stats recently?
Our biggest day of all time was November 6th. We did as much business on November 6th as we did in all of 2023.
We
Wow.
had a very similar reaction. We had a
Yeah.
very similar reaction. Our website spiked on election day,
Huge.
and it's going to keep spiking. You know the metaphor, and I don't know if it's absolutely true, but the frog in the water, the frog will
Yes.
stay in the water until it figures out it's too hot. I think at some point, some of us will have already figured out it's too hot, and some of us
Yeah.
will stay to the bitter end. And people choose to stay. That's their choice. I get it. And some people can't afford it. But for those who want to find a better place, where are you seeing people look right now?
So, first of all, I think the people who are having the hardest time right now are the people who've done everything right their whole lives. Like the people who I'm talking to are the people who have the most money saved up, who did the right major, who did the right career. Those of us who failed over and over again, like we saw this coming years ago because we've always kind of maybe lived on the margins. But for people who are all but white picket fence, I think they're the ones who are struggling the most because it's like the fabric of reality is just being ripped apart. And they're like, but I do everything I was supposed to do. I feel bad for them, right? Because they didn't even get to have any fun. They've been playing by the rules the whole time. But we see people who are wanting to move abroad. We always have seen people who are wanting to move abroad for political reasons. Our first spike was after overturning Roe versus Wade, and it just sort of increased from there. That was the point at which we realized that this could be a viable business. I left my job to work on Expatsi full time. We had started with just a quiz that was free to match people up with potential countries based on what they were looking for in weather and cost of living and human rights issues and things like that. And after that, I was like, okay, there's clearly a market for this out here. It's not just us, but I wasn't sure what was next. Now at this point, we have 80 experts around the world who help people in different places. We do a webinar every week. For example, this week is how to move to Ireland. And then we have a membership. And of course, we're doing a conference, which I want to talk about at some point because it's in Texas.
Absolutely. I've got a list of things to talk about with you. Keep
Thank you.
going.
So we do all these different things to just get people out. One of our most important audiences is parents with LGBTQ kids because they feel so terrified and unsafe. And we have some pretty straightforward paths. It depends, but barring all else, we're sending as many people to Uruguay as we can. So we're doing things like that.
Tell me more.
Mhm.
Because it's the easiest place to go. It's the quickest and easiest visa or to go. Absolutely.
It is.
It's
And
not it's not the best passport in the world, but
no, correct,
it
correct.
gets you out.
That's right. And you can get citizenship in 3 years. But most important, they legalized homosexuality in 1934. The US didn't officially until what? Oberfell. So they, first of all, they're very progressive, they're a stable democracy, and they've never criminalized drugs. They just don't have that, you know how it is in the US where it's just really terrible. So we find it's a really great place to go. It might be a little bit sleepy, but I think we could all use a little bit of sleepy at the moment. It has temperate weather, and if you get bored, there's a ferry to Buenos Aires for, you know, all the entertainment you could hope for.
And for those who may not be geographically inclined, it is in South America next to Argentina and Paraguay and Brazil.
Yes.
So, yes, I was sitting here Googling just to be sure. I knew where it was, but I just want to double check.
Hey,
So-
that's okay.
so-
I thought it bordered Paraguay for the longest time, but they have like a little bit of,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So for Uruguay, is it a investment visa? Is it how are people getting in? Because we know about the 4 different visa systems, which we'll go through here in a minute.
Okay.
How's Uruguay's visa system set up?
So like most of Central and South America, it's just like temporary residency versus permanent residency. First of all, you don't have to do anything for a pretty long amount of time. I think you get like a couple of years before you really have to show your finances. Listen, there's a reason why I have a network of experts. Let me tell you that, because I'm a generalist. I try to know as much as I can
That's
about
fine.
different places. But in general, you can go. You don't have to apply until after you go. I think you have a really long amount of time before you have to apply, 6 months or more. And then I don't think you have to show financials for like maybe even 2 years. But so a lot of places in Central and South America have this option where if you show X amount of money, you can get temporary residency. And if you show X times 2 amount of money or whatever, you can get permanent residency. Like I said, in Uruguay, you can apply for citizenship after 3 years. So there are a lot of fast tracks there. Paraguay does too, but it isn't as progressive as Uruguay is.
Is it's either Paraguay or Uruguay. I'm not quite sure which one, but one of them literally only requires you spend 24 hours before you apply for residency, and then you don't have to spend any more time there. Like it's one, they literally require 1 day a year that you spend there to apply for residency.
Paraguay.
Yes,
It's probably Paraguay, but they both have really friendly programs.
yeah.
So Uruguay, I'm just pulling this up on screen here. Steady income of at least $1,500 a month, and I'm assuming that's in some sort of remote job, or that you have cash
Or
reserves in the bank.
investor. Yeah.
Right.
Pension,
Right.
Social Security, if it exists, cash.
Hi, Jen. It's just me and you. He's frozen.
I see that.
And this
I didn't know if I could say anything or not.
Was that just me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just you.
I'm sorry. So we're running the LGBTQ World Map .com, which is a website where we list places people can go and how to get into places.
Nice.
You mentioned the 4 visas. Can we talk about the difference between the student visa, the golden visa, the digital nomad visa, and the retirement visa?
For sure. So first of all, I would like access to that map and to put it on my site. Link to it on my site.
Anytime.
Okay.
Can I share a screen?
Sure.
So let's go to LGBTQ World Map, and hopefully the internet gods are happy. And this is our map. So you can turn off different layers here, and these will be the countries and the states that have protections for LGBTQ people. Okay. It's LGBTQworldmap.com. These are states that have some protection. These are states that have digital nomad visas. Now you'll notice that not much is lighting up on South America. So maybe the source I used didn't have South America as a thing. Golden visas, student visas, obviously everywhere. These are countries that LGBTQ people should not go to because some of them will put you to death. 4 countries have the death penalty.
Right.
These are states that have no protections for gay people if we lose a Bergefeld v. Hodges and we lose Lawrence v. Texas. Okay. These are states that still have the sodomy laws on the books. So if we lose Lawrence v. Texas, we are immediately criminalized. Immediately criminalized. They don't have to come back into session. They never took it off their books.
Right.
So this is a map that we use. And normally I leave these 2 layers on. I guess I left the other layers on before, that show you where in the states or in the world you might be safer. So like if you click on New Jersey here, and the internet gods are happy, it'll take you to our page about New Jersey and show you that New Jersey has a Democratic governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Senate, and House. They do have legal protections in their state laws. So if we lose federal, they'll be fine. Conversion therapy is banned there, so we don't have to worry about somebody getting hooked up to the shock therapy if they're young and gay. And they have marriage equality of their own. They don't have to depend on the federal. If you click on any of these other states, you're going to get a different story. Alabama, bless their hearts.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
Here, we have a list of things that you need to know. Thank you, ChatGPT. And we're also running the Flee Red States blog, which shows you different things that have happened around the world. And these are all coded to Alabama, because since we're on the Alabama page, things that are affecting our rights locally, so that people can read up on, not just what we think about, one of these states. Let's pick
This
Michigan
is
here.
great. This is great.
Thank you. So yeah, the map leads to that. The map here leads to different resources, which is why we're talking to folks like you. So this is not us, this is Global Citizens Solutions. And they're talking about, I don't want this to just be, well, Bob said
Yes.
this is a good country. So we're
Yes.
trying to cite why these countries are good. And you just brought me some Central American countries that are not on this map that need to be.
Do you
So I
know
will
about
go,
the trans rights map? Because I would include
no,
that if you don't already have it. It's
let me go find that.
yeah, it's an EU. It only applies to the EU, but
Okay,
they track every minutia about trans rights in Europe.
right. Now, one thing you'll notice here is when you go on anti-LGBTQ countries, the United States is mentioned, because
Yeah.
not all states have equal rights. So, and there we do have Peru shows up as an anti-LGBTQ country. It's legal there, but there's no specific anti-discrimination laws protecting.
Right. And
So,
Panama, I would say, was probably because Panama still doesn't have gay marriage.
Panama did not show, and I used criteria that other people had come up with, so that it wasn't just my opinion. So maybe
Sure.
there was a reason Panama was not.
Well, it probably isn't negative. I
listed.
think it would be gay friendly on a person to person level. They just don't have gay marriage.
Okay, so back to
And
you
by the
here,
way,
but thank you for go ahead, Leslie.
no, and by the way, I know people who move into Panama, they feel very comfortable, but one of the reasons they choose Panama is because they can get loans for homes there. And previously you couldn't. But now Mexico is now offering home loans to expats,
Oh, nice.
which is really new. Because not everybody can afford to go over and do that big investment and pay cash. So
Same.
a lot of people are looking for ways around that. So now it's important, what countries can I actually apply for a home loan and get a mortgage?
Oh, nice, nice. That's a great service.
Yeah. So we'll highlight your site here for a minute, and then we'll talk more about those visa programs.
Awesome. Thanks.
So, okay, so we know about digital nomad. We've talked about that a lot. If you have a remote job, you can go to Uruguay, Paraguay, other places, Spain, Portugal. Where are you seeing golden visas show up where people are interested in investment visas, basically?
So golden visas, they come and go. A big thing about them, they're not very popular right now with locals in some countries because people think that people are using them to buy all the houses. Now, in real terms, the Spanish golden visa is going away in 3 weeks. 800 people use that visa a year, and not even all of them buy homes. So maybe 400 homes, in a country of 45 million people, 400 homes were purchased. A better reason to get rid of some of them, like the gold card that Trump has been talking about, is that they're just used by oligarchs and bad actors. And that is true. That really does happen. In Portugal, they had a golden visa for buying property. And if you look at the data, almost all of it was bought by Chinese billionaires. I mean, literally almost every single house, which obviously isn't the same as Carolyn with her retirement check, going to buy one apartment and live in it and free up one apartment in Tampa for somebody who might want to move to the US and build a better life there, somebody who's a better fit for the US. This was people buying, dozens and dozens of homes to hide money from governments and this and that. Also for Russians to get into the EU, and some old money and things like that. So they do have some negative connotations in some countries. That said, countries offer them for a reason, and the reason is because it saves their bacon. Portugal was nearly bankrupt when it launched the golden visa after 2008. And if you look at their economy now, it's soaring. Same with Spain. Because
Greece is doing one right now, I believe, right?
Greece still has one. I think Greece is the last one that offers residences in Europe. There may be some smaller ones here and there that aren't called golden visas, but Greece's they raise the amounts, but it's 800,000 if you're in like Athens or on the coast. And then it's 400,000 if you're more inland. And then you can also invest 250,000 euros to renovate a property, which, you know, just puts new housing on the market, which I think is a great service. At the end of the day, you putting your money into another country is beneficial to that country and its citizens, regardless of the politics of it.
I completely agree. And I don't know how to wake up some of these politicians. There is a group of people leaving the United States who have a bit of affluence.
Mhm.
Usually, you know, gay people, you know, we're fairly educated, we're nice folks. LGBTQ folks are going to be fine. And there's intersectionality with the BIPOC community and the women's community. We all feel at risk here. So when I say one, I'm meaning the whole group. That some country could go, you know what? They're going to rent a house here. They're going to pay our local taxes. They're going to pay our VAT. They're going to eat in our restaurants. Let's let them in.
We just put together our Expatsi report for last year, and let me share it if that's okay.
Absolutely. We're all about sharing.
I should have sent it to you earlier. I just have been so crazy busy. Okay, so this is a measure of 116,000 Americans who took our Expatsi test last year. And one of the things I just showed that, you know, more people are taking the test every year.
I want this so
We
bad.
had a huge, I can tell you're a data person, I can tell because of your map. So we had a huge spike after the Trump Biden debate. And then of course, this was the spike we saw after the election. These are the reasons why they want to leave the US. 61% want adventure and personal growth, which is great, but 56% say the US is too conservative. That's a huge jump over the previous year. You can see a little bit about how the reasons changed since 2023. We added leaving because of gun violence because we had so many people literally write it in as an option.
Gotcha.
But we added
Gotcha.
it to the test. Then you can see the rest, they just stayed pretty much the same. They want to leave pretty quickly. This is within 2 years. So you're looking at 2/3 of people wanting to leave by 2026. We asked them, you know, what regions they prefer, the weather. But I wanted to show you this because of what you were mentioning. These are their monthly budgets. They've gone up a lot since we first started the test. But if everyone who left, everyone who took the test last year left, they would spend $6.5 billion a year in other countries.
Wow.
I'm sorry, say that again for the people in the back.
They would spend $6.5 billion a year in other countries. And that does include, I know how much savings they have too. They would take every dime they owned and spend it in other countries.
So the other countries that are harder to get into right now, Canada, UK, Ireland, you know, Spain and Portugal are pretty much open. Y'all need to tune in.
I know.
Australia is not fabulous to get into, as I understand. It's harder to get a visa there. So, you know, adopt us.
Right, exactly. You know, they want labor, they don't want money, and they don't want anyone to use the healthcare system. So they want young people for labor at the moment. Anyways, if you want to see, this is just a little breakdown of who they're like.
I would love to have this if you would send it.
Absolutely. So you were talking about these visa pads. This is how many people say they want those visa pads. So only 3% report wanting to be investors, 2% want to be students, 30% want retirement, 18% want to be digital nomads, and 17% want to get a local job. Now, that doesn't mean these are the paths they will end up following because they might be mismatches, but this 31% have no clue. And I do one-on-one consults, and mostly my consults are with the people who have no clue. And usually they fall into one of two buckets, which is they could go, they're like, well, my boss would probably let me work abroad, and I have, you know, $4.5 million in savings if I sell the house. So maybe I could get a golden visa. And, I could start a business if I wanted to, or I'm willing to go back to school. So they have too many paths. And so it's hard to decide. Or it is folks who are really on the fringes and they have no path. So we talk to them about, here is how we think in 18 months you could have more options to actually leave.
And by the way, what Spain just announced, looking for work option.
Yes,
You don't
that's
have to
right.
have a job. You can just go there and say, I'm looking for work, which is amazing.
Yes, Germany has a job seeker option. Portugal has a job seeker option. Our partners in Spain feel like the Spain one is harder to get than is being promoted, but I can't speak to
Yeah.
that personally. But job seeker visas are viable, especially if you do work that doesn't lend itself well to like online networking, like if you need to go in person. Spain also has an option specifically for people in audio visual fields. Because they need a lot of workers in audio visual. So you get automatic ability to go there and look for jobs. And then,
Example of what that would be as far so people on the podcast can understand.
sure. So you probably, as somebody who is making audio works, an actor, a director, a producer, someone in makeup, someone who
So they're looking for entertainment sort of category.
yeah, but also,
Interesting.
yeah. If you filmed commercials, things like that, lighting,
Interesting.
yeah. So, and they
But
have a
does that fall under skilled? I'm sorry. Does that fall under skilled worker in most categories? Because skilled worker to
yes.
me is changes by country, but it's generally medical care, high tech website designer sort of folk. What would
Well,
be considered skilled worker for folks?
okay, so that's a great question. I love this question. So, skilled worker just means you have the skills that country is looking for. And so sometimes I think people expect, like, oh, I'm not because I have to do blah, blah, blah. On Austria's skilled worker list, they have shop clerks, they have servers. Listen, these are skills, right? I'm not trying to decry them, but most people don't think they're the kind of skills that can help them move abroad. Germany in particular needs so many construction trade workers. They're desperate that they'll even bring you on if you don't speak German. So there are options on our site on Expatsi under resources. We have some job boards. Now, I recommend that you go in person, like Leslie was saying, and talk to hiring managers and things like that in person, or go on job sites, but also networking. I don't recommend that you just go send your resume out, blah, blah, blah. We all know it's a waste. It takes so much time, so much effort. Nobody ever looks at it. I would much rather you have one-on-one conversations, but in general, there are opportunities. When you're talking about Australia, New Zealand, it's healthcare for sure. Like they are absolutely desperate. Canada is even hiring, they need 15,000 caregivers. Yeah, there are paths.
I did that for 9 years for my mom. I think I could do that.
Very nice. Good
Yeah.
son.
This is very cool. This is very cool.
Okay, so I'll show you. These are what they're looking for safety, healthcare, and infrastructure. Good infrastructure is more important than safety for folks. 2/3 of people expect that they'll get universal health care. Just to be clear, they won't. Not everybody who just walks into a new country gets handed their baby birthing box and their 2 years of maternity leave and their universal health care. You have to go with certain paths, but it may be available to you depending on the country. As far as religious groups, we had many more people looking for an atheist group or no religion than any other religion.
Wow.
In terms of
This
languages, a lot of people would prefer an English speaking country. And for skilled workers, it's almost required, right? It's hard. If I had to have this podcast in Spanish, it would be very challenging for me. I'm learning Spanish here in Mexico, but I can kind of do it on my own time, right? Because I'm not forced to do it at work. So I can make mistakes and apologize and things like that. It makes it a lot easier. So that's that. But amongst languages people are open to learn, they're almost all European languages in the top. Others fell way below. They really like to be on the beach or in the mountains. They're much less interested in being in big cities.
Really?
Hmm.
The freedom they want most often is the ability to have same-sex relationships, without a doubt, followed by abortion and then same-sex marriage, and then gender self-determination.
Or
27
as we call it, human rights.
human rights, 100,000%, 100,000%. 27% of folks who take the test are looking for places that rank highly for LGBTQ expats in particular. These are countries that get recommended the most often based on their answers to the questions. Now, they aren't, Switzerland, Austria, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Norway are not easy countries to get into, and they are not the most common places people go, but based on their answers to the quiz. And we use similar data sources, Bob, to what you're using for your map. That's what's most recommended. So that's how that works. I will be happy to send it to you.
I would love that. Okay, so I understand you have a big conference coming up in San Antonio, I believe.
Yes. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's our very first one. I mean, so we do webinars and classes and one-on-one consultations, and we go live on TikTok 4 hours a week and have for almost 2 years now. Although the first month we went live every day for hours answering questions from people who want to move abroad. So we have a lot of tools, but every single time we get people together, we have a big Facebook group. They just want to meet each other. They want to build community. We do take people on scouting trips, which is huge. We go to Spain, Portugal, and across Mexico, and we're going to be adding more. But they just
Oh, I'm following you on TikTok. I didn't know that.
here's me. Americans are starved for community. I mean, starved for community. We're so isolated in big houses. We don't have any third places. I try to explain this to our European partners and they go, what's a third place? They can't conceive of a third. And I'm like, because every place you have is a third place. We only have home and work. There is no
Right.
hangout spot. So first of all, we wanted an opportunity to bring folks together to meet each other, because ultimately the obstacles people have to moving abroad are internal. Yeah, there's money. Yeah, there's jobs. Yeah, there's skills, whatever. But most of it is fear. We all act like we're on the Truman Show and, we're going to drown or catch on fire. Like every way is peril. And just what if they don't like me? What if it's not what I think? All these
I
different.
had so many people sit me down and go, "Oh, it's so expensive. Oh, you won't, everybody flies to our country for healthcare. Why would you? What if you get sick?" All the naysayers who want to keep you in their safe zone, because if
Oh,
you do something outrageous, they have no excuse for not doing something outrageous
right.
anymore.
I mean,
So, and I had to just break it. Now, I don't talk about where I live online, but I had to break some of it and say, if 9 or 10 million other people can figure this out, why can't I?
mhm.
Pick the country that you want to go to. Other people already live there. They're figuring it out.
Yes.
And they're not paying $17 for a dozen eggs. So
That
they're doing
I do have a
well.
video on that, by the way, Leslie. You'll have to go back and look on TikTok. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's the quality of life. I mean, almost 8 billion people don't live in the United States. You know what I mean? Like there are options. So
Yeah, it's just our myopia. It's just our,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and we're groomed into saying these things so that
Of
nobody ever
course.
thinks outside the
Of
box.
course. Of course. It's
Yeah.
intentional. So if you make buddies though, and your buddies are like, your buddies at home are like, but what if, what if this, what if that? But your buddies at the conference are going to be like, you should do it. They're going to
Yeah.
be on your side and they're going to be your friends in your new location. So there's that. But the other thing is we have people coming from 4 different continents who are going to actually help you make the moves. So not to be like salesy about it. I just get excited. Like our partners in Portugal are coming, our partners in Spain. We have experts from all over Mexico. Costa Rica is coming. Uruguay is coming. Ghana is coming. Then we have, UK is coming. And we have experts in citizenship by ancestry, digital nomad, retirement. We're going to have finance people, tax people, people who can come and teach you how to teach English as a foreign language abroad.
Which, by the
So
way, isn't necessarily required that you speak that other language in some countries,
absolutely, it's
which
not.
is so weird.
No, absolutely, it's not. You
But
can hop around from country to country without.
Jen, I think your point was, as an American, you could teach English in the country you're at, right?
Well,
Is that what you were trying to say? Yeah.
wait,
Like if you move to, Uruguay, you could teach English down there.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought you meant teach English in the US, and I was like, probably.
Well,
Well.
there
I know
is
that sometimes I could use some grammar help.
no, I was trying to bring it back because I think Leslie was going one way and I think your point was a different way. So that's why I was trying to get it back on track. But yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities. So where's the conference and what dates?
It's San Antonio, and it's going to be May 23rd through 25th, which is Memorial Day weekend. So no excuse.
And would you be you wouldn't be upset if we posted that to some preferred real estate groups we belong to,
I'd be
like people
heartbroken.
who are like-minded? Perfect.
I would be delighted. As a matter of fact, did I give you a coupon code? If not, I'll give you a coupon code.
Oh wow, a coupon code. What
I'll
was that
go.
coupon? What's your coupon code?
Well, let's make it be Flee Red States.
Perfect.
We'll do
Oh,
Flee
so you want
Red States, and they'll save 10% on tickets.
fabulous.
You are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. If I had known about it, we could have gotten a booth or something and set up something,
Well, it's not
But,
it's not too late.
we can talk offline about that. When you're doing these tours, tell people what the tours are like. So one thing I'm encouraging folks is, because right now they're just got to get out.
Yes.
They're not thinking about where do I go, because they've never set foot in one of these other countries. And
Yes.
so it's intimidating to them. So they're looking at Canada because it's supposed to be so close to
I
the US.
know. I know.
But
But
at
they
least it'll be
can't
something
go.
they
Yeah, you can't
tell
go
us
there.
about the tours you're doing. Yeah, Canada's building a wall on their southern border.
Yeah, you can't go. You can go if you get a job that will sponsor you, and that's about it.
Good luck.
Right. Good luck. So, and rumors swirl about Canada all the time. But okay, so first of all, we say there are 6 stages to moving abroad. Ideation, which is what a lot of your listeners are probably in, which is I could go somewhere. Where could I go? I don't know where to get started. And that's the point at which they take the Expatsi test and get matched up. We could probably help you make one for states too that would work with your map. Anyway, so then the next stage is planning, which is what have I got to offer? So I can get a job abroad, or I'm a nomad. Self-employment is a big one, by the way, and it doesn't completely overlap with digital nomad, because there are options like the DAF visa in the Netherlands that Americans can get by being self-employed that isn't a digital nomad. So you could do those, you could invest, you could retire like we talked about, you can be a student. So
By the way, and for the student part,
Mhm.
education in other countries is sometimes dirt cheap
Or free.
or free. And a friend of mine was looking at how she could go back to school. She'd go to Spain and just go as a student and get another master's. And she's like, and she looked up the cost, and it was like 700, 800, 900 equal US dollars a year
Yeah.
per semester. It was ridiculously low.
Yeah. It's very different.
Some people who are worried about, let's say I took care of my mother for many years. And so I was not able to make any moves. And then once I was free to make moves. If you're sending your children to school and you want to get them out of this state that you're in, you can send them to a school overseas and apply for US government aid to send them to school. While we still have government aid, let me just caveat that, 'cause no idea if Doge is taking that away. You can use your student aid money in any university around the world.
That's
my
right.
understanding.
Well, not
So
any.
strictly
You're talking about
Ireland.
FAFSA. Are you talking about FAFSA or something else?
I don't know the specific programs, but what I've heard is you can use student loans in student situations. If you want to send your kid to,
Student loans, yeah.
Dublin or to
Yes.
Paraguay or wherever, you can use that to get your kid out. And by the way,
That's
once
right.
they're there and they find the person of their dreams, guess where they're going to stay? They're going to stay
That's
someplace
right.
safe.
That's
They're going
right.
to stay someplace safe.
That's right. So
That what we all want for children.
FAFSA works in a lot of different countries. It depends on the school, but you can use FAFSA as well. And your GI Bill works in a lot of different countries.
Well, we still have a GI Bill. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, so stage 3 is exploration. And that's where you're like, okay, I know I want a digital nomad visa. I know that Spain and Portugal are good fits for me, but I don't know what I like. And that's where, like, we want you to experience the vibes, honestly, because that's what's going to let you know where you're going to be happy. Countries on paper are not the same, or on the internet, or certainly not on Instagram, or not what they're like in person. So we take people around. We start off the first night with like a big seminar with our partners, and they talk about visas, taxes, real estate, wealth management, and health insurance, and how it works in that country. Then every day we tour different cities or neighborhoods where people like to live. You know, we don't go see, you know, Sagrada Familia in Barcelona or whatever. We go and tour towns and neighborhoods. And then we also look at real estate. So the idea is, this is always contentious because everyone's like, this is too expensive for me, or too big, or too little, or too cheap, or in the wrong place. And it's like, y'all, you're a group of 20 people. We're showing you how people live in this place. And either this is what you're picturing for your life, or it's not. And then if they want a private real estate tour, now they have a real estate connection in that town. And so usually what they do is tack on an extra day, or they skip a tour for one day and they go and look at real estate with the realtor. In some countries like Portugal, you have to have a lease in place before you apply for your visa, even though you aren't going to be living in it yet. So there are different rules. So that's where the tours come into play. Now, for folks who are really in a red hot hurry and have to leave, I recommend going somewhere that is easy and continuing to look from there. So if you can't go and explore all the places you'd like to, but you know you can get here to where we live in Mexico, for example, easily because you qualify and you can drive, go there. And first of all, unclench, like spend a month re-regulating your nervous system, right? Because it's like everyone is in fight or flight. They're all running from a tiger and trying to like do quantum mechanics at the same time. I'm like, get out of the path of the tiger and then do the quantum mechanics. And so go someplace, stop trying to find like, okay, the perfect place is Paris. And the reason it's perfect is that, you know, like, stop trying to justify it. The truth is you don't know. You don't know if you're going to like it or not. And it's impossible to know. So get someplace safe. And then you can still, you know, we live 3 hours from Cancun. I have an 8-hour flight to Madrid from Cancun. If I want to go and visit Europe or whatever else, I am not stuck by any means anywhere. So since we moved here, we visited Spain and Portugal. I visited Oaxaca to get an idea of another country. We're going to Belize this weekend. And then later this year, we're planning to drive through Slovenia, Croatia, and Albania. Albania is not as LGBTQ friendly, but you can live there for a year as an American with no visa at all, which makes it a great jumping off point to get somewhere else in Europe. So we're going to go and visit our guide there and get a better feel of countries that we're recommending.
This is all great information.
You're doing good work and you're seeing the world at the same time. That's amazing.
I feel like I've cracked the code.
So one thing you said, which, and I forget exactly how you phrased it. The way I see this is that people will stay for as long as they think they can tolerate it.
Yes.
And then something else will happen and they'll go, grr, I should get out. and they'll stay a little bit longer because they'll get used to that.
That's that frog
Something
thing.
big will happen and they'll go, grr, I should get out. At some point, if you study history, which unfortunately I have because that was my niche, you know how these forced migrations go.
Mhm.
The people who wait to the very end lose wealth and unfortunately lose lives. Um, I hope somebody slaps me and says, you're wrong about this. Everything is going to be brightness and sunshine. But for those who wait to the last minute to sell their house and to try to move, housing prices may not be the same if somebody sees that, Steve and Tom are on the deed and they know they have to get out. Or if Michael's on the deed, but Michelle is selling the house and Michael's a dead name in a trans situation. They're going to probably look at you and go, I can get this for 20% less because I know you kind of just got to go. And there are some markets on the United States right now that are not having the COVID market where everything flew off the shelves. We have 5 to 6 months of inventory sitting around. So the house that you thought was just going to, well, my brother sold 3 years ago and got this. That's not the same market today. So my thought was, I don't want to be on the last train out. I did not want to wait because I see the writing on the wall. And it was the head of the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance paid me a compliment recently online. He said, Bob McCraney saw this years ago and tried to warn us. And at the time, people were kind of like, oh, just write your congressperson and tell them how gay rights are important. Well, that person who told me that lives in a blue state, and Nancy Pelosi is his congressperson. Of course, Nancy Pelosi is going to believe that. My congressperson would not give a rat if I called and said something about gay rights. I'm sorry, Ted Cruz is not going to take that call. Okay, so when we get people to say just stay and vote, if you leave, who's going to vote against this? I'm not going to be the one to stand there when
You
they've
can
already
vote from
gerrymandered
abroad, first of all.
I'm sorry, you can vote from abroad, yes,
Yes.
but when we go to Pride events and we have the Proud Boys there with their weapons on their back, when we get death threats in the mail, when we get our whole staff is doxxed by long lens cameras and people taking pictures of everybody in the Pride event, that's not right for us to live with that stress, nor my staff to have to go through that. So, but people normalize that and go, well, that's just, why are you talking about politics so much? It's not politics, it's our lives. And when we can look at these other places and go, wait, we can live in someplace warm where we're paying less and we've got access to health care and it's fairly safe and my kids can go to a school. Oh, why don't we do that? Because we're so set on the fact that, well, my grandpappy settled the land back there, so we got to stay here forever. No, we don't.
And
And your service is showing them the way.
and everybody's choice can be different, and we support everybody's choice. And I come from the perspective, I'm 53 years old, and you know I went through that marching and voting and protesting and all that stuff to get to where we are, only to see it being taken away. I'm tired.
First of
It's
all,
I don't have to, I don't, because I have people who are older than me is like, you got to stay and fight. And I'm like, no, I don't. And somebody else can pick that up. And then we have those younger people like they don't want to deal with it at all. So, but whatever choice they make, I'm not going to begrudge it. It's their choice. But we see a lot of people that get upset when we say, well, we're leaving. They're like, well, why would you? Well, we've been down this road. We've done our part. We're good. So if they want to stay and fight, we support them. If they want to leave, we support them. It's truly up to them. We're not going to judge them either way.
agreed. First of all, class of 89.
Yay! Yes, Bob, I graduated.
Class of 85 here. Keep going.
Okay. Oh, a senior. Fancy. So, well, I mean, a senior in high school. Not a senior citizen.
Well, it's been lovely having you. Let me mute you. No, keep going, Jen.
It was going so well until then. So, first of all, just speaking to that, this is my activism. I'm going to get 1 million Americans and all their money out of the country. And as far as I can see, it's the only thing that works. I mean, I have voted, I have called, I have marched, I have sent postcards. At one point, Stacey Abrams was running in Georgia, and I would deliver a cheesecake during COVID to anyone who showed they had donated to Stacey Abrams. I'm out of ideas, but what I can do is get people out. Now, I know this is scary and frustrating to people who cannot leave, but you are much more likely to get to a point you can leave if I have friendlies posted all over the world than if you are, they're not going to be able to protect you at home. They just can't. This is bleak and extreme, but a guy on one of my consulting groups said, the pessimists moved to Beverly Hills and the optimists went to the gas chamber.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't the
Have you ever
optimist.
seen the movie? Have you ever seen the musical Cabaret?
Yes.
We are literally living
Yes.
Germany 1930s, and there's a shopkeeper, and he sells fruit, and he's having this romance with the woman who runs the hotel that, you know, Sally Bowles and you know, the main character are staying in, and she runs this room and she lets them out to people, and they fall in love. They have this nice little romance, and during the show in Cabaret, you find out he's Jewish, and somebody throws a brick through his window, and they decide not to stay together. And people try to warn him, and he says, "But I'm German. But I'm a German in the play, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel this way or that way, but this is literally what's in Cabaret." And I just hear that when people say, "Well, I'm going to stay and fight, and I love you if you want to," but
Yes.
there's another podcaster who does this, does an analogy, and I'll give him credit in the comments, um, about restaurants. If you go to a bad restaurant and you have the worst service and the food just makes your stomach upset and your kids are sick for a week, you don't go back to that restaurant and you tell all your friends, "Oh my God, it's horrible, don't eat here." But the ideology that they won't get better unless you keep shopping at that restaurant. They won't get better
Yes.
unless you go back
Yes.
and just keep eating there. How are they going to improve? If you have a state that takes your rights away, that takes your tax dollars, and makes you marginalized second class citizens, why do we keep going to that restaurant?
Exactly. Or the bad relationship, right? And he's terrible and he's terrible and he's terrible, and you stick with it. And it's like, well, if I leave and then he gets better, he's going to find somebody new. But he's never going to get better unless you leave, unless he has that wake up call. So you have to go. You have to, and you have to have enough self-worth. I fully believe, first of all, this is a bodily consent issue. And we all have to choose for ourselves. And no one has ever gotten happy by wanting other people to live their lives exactly the way they want. And when people are like, you have to stay and fight, they sound to me like people who say you have to be straight. It sounds exactly the same to me, to my mind. It is saying you can only be responsible for your own needs and your own choices, and you have to be happy with that. You cannot base your happiness on another person's choices, period. It's
And you know,
just a
and
recipe for misery.
and to that point, you know, when I was very young, and we were becoming little young activists, had two much older activists say to me, 2 years or a goal. You commit 2 years to whatever it is you say, I'm going to spend 2 years fighting for this thing. If I achieve it before that 2 years is up, I stop. If I don't achieve before that 2 years is up, I stop. Because somebody else will pick up the ball. I can't assume that I'm the only one that can do it. There are other people that want that. My commitment is, you know, I've done it. I'm done. It's okay. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it. And they do try to make you feel guilty about it. But I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I've done my time, and it's okay for me to let someone else pick up that ball and run with it. You know, I wish them the best, and I will fight from the far, but I'm not going to live through it again.
Yes. Guilt and shame are epidemics. And I'm sure it's true everywhere, but they're epidemics
Right.
in the US. And this to me is where a lot of the problems, we're getting really philosophical here, but where a lot of the problems come from is because
Have you
like
seen our show?
exactly.
We
So
get deep.
we're raised with this guilt and shame, right? And some of us learn to process it for better, for worse. We do our best. And then some people don't. and they need to put it on someone else. And the way to do that is to be outraged. And they're addicted to it because it absolves them of guilt and shame, because they can just
Yep.
be outraged at someone else. And it's just, and it happens on both sides. It is not the right does it worse. They're definitely worse, but they don't own the rights to it by any stretch
Right.
of the imagination. I get the comments that hurt me on my videos always come from people on the left, where it's like, I can't, we just can't pass the purity test. And it's why we can't come together sometimes, because there is no good enough.
Right. Okay, so I want you to stick around for just a second. I'm going to end the podcast now and say, any final words you want to leave the folks before I end the podcast part, and then you and I can talk offline for a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything you want to leave with the folks for Expatsi? Anything you want to tell them? Your conference, your tours?
The most important thing to know is that you can do this. Maybe you can't do it today. Maybe you have 6 months or a year's worth of work or reskilling or saving that you've got to do, but you absolutely can do this. You can make a better life abroad. You will find community where you go, and it's completely within your reach, even if it feels daunting and scary. We have tools to help, plenty of free ones if you need those. I would love to meet you at the conference because it's in Texas, and I know you have a lot of listeners there. And I do think it is the shortest path from, I say, the quickest path out of the US runs through San Antonio.
Thank you for being here so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely.